Okay, welcome to the live stream for December 12th, 2018. My name is Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It runs for about 3 hours. So if you are new here, welcome. And if you are returning here, welcome. So we have James, Karen, hooray, Jamie, Missouri Cowboy on tonight. How are you guys doing? Tanitria, Caridad, Eileen, Blue Moon, Maurizia, Agata, Slavic Princess, hello, hello. So before we get going, actually, and while questions are coming in, I wanted to just acknowledge we just hit a really big milestone on this channel. We just hit 50,000 subscribers the other day. So that was quite a shocker. So yay for that. That's a huge milestone. And let's see, James says, how's the house? The house is about 90% done. We were just over there earlier tonight. I don't know if they're going to be done by the end of the month. They keep saying that they will be, but they don't have, they haven't finished painting yet. They don't have, the toilets are not in, the bathroom's not tiled, like the countertops aren't in. They still have to change out the windows in the basement. There's a lot of work they still need to do, and they couldn't move any slower than they're moving. So we shall see. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Dandelion Green says, congratulations. Awesome and so well deserved. Well, thank you. Oh, thank you. Janine says, hello, my favorite YouTuber. You have given me so much insight. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for saying that and for your support. I really appreciate it. It's been quite the learning curve with YouTube, and I still have so much more to learn. So maybe 2019, I'd like to get to the point where I'm uploading shorter videos on a much more regular basis, because I understand these live streams are really long and probably are very overwhelming for the majority of people. And, I get it. I think they're nice for the people that are here, but it's probably overwhelming to go back and watch them. Let's see. Well, good. James says, I love these live streams. Well, thanks. Okay, just saw, actually, another thing that I wanted to mention, I made some notes tonight, was about, I thought it was important to discuss the whole need for concrete proof. This is something that we talk about often on here, and kind of moving away from concrete proof and realizing that if something feels off, that is proof enough for us to err on the side of caution. And I thought a good example of that was, if you've been following the whole Shannon Watts, Chris Watts murder case, where he murdered his whole family. In that story, her best friend knew that something was off pretty much right away, within hours of her death. And she knew something was off because she had tried calling and Shanann wasn't picking up the phone. And then she realized Chris gave her kind of a fishy story about her being at a friend's house. Things weren't adding up. And the thing about that is I think in my own life, I'm like, man, if that was me, how many people, if I had been her friend, right? There's a solid chance I would have chalked it up to, she just needs her time. She's tired. She's busy. I'm sure she'll call me later. I would think that's probably the default response for most people. And her friend, because her friend had more, fuller context about kind of what was going on in their marriage, and Chris was acting really squirrely and these kinds of things. And she was on top of it right away, insisting, we need to call the police. We need to get out there. We need to find her. We need to find these kids. And if it hadn't have been for her, there's a really solid chance that he wouldn't have been caught, or it would have taken a lot longer to have been caught, and much of the DNA evidence wouldn't still be there. So I just thought that was a great example of, you just need enough proof that something's wrong to start taking some action. James says, it's very easy to feel like you need evidence, but you don't. We tend to make excuses and lessen the red flags. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Hi, Rick. Siddharth, welcome, welcome. Kiara says, Dana, I came to the realization that I was denied affection and positive touch as a child. Because of this, I fall for affectionate people, even if they are bad, and oftentimes fall for abusers. Well, I think that's a very profound realization to make. And I would say that, yeah, there's generally a connection there. So if we're starved out in some sort of way, if we're lonely, if we never really received the love and affection growing up, or we haven't received it in a long time as an adult, it's very common for people to be drawn to those who shower us with love bombing, basically, with all of that attention and affection and intensity. So when I talk about intensity on here and saying it's really important for us to not mistake intensity for sincerity, that's what I'm talking about. So problematic people tend to move fast. They're very quick to make you their whole world. They want to spend every waking moment with you. They start showering you. They're telling you everything you want to hear. Just this incessant love bombing. And to a person who's starved out, that just feels amazing. It feels like the answers to your prayers. It feels like you've met your soulmate. It just feels like everything is good and right with the world. And the reality is, it's just too much too soon. And healthy people don't move at that pace. And so a lot of us, if a problematic person is quick to create a whirlwind, we're oftentimes quick to want to jump into it, especially if we struggle with having a lot of things going on in our life outside of our relationship. If we're not spending enough time with friends, if we don't really have any hobbies, if basically all we're doing is going to work and then coming home, maybe periodically spending time with friends, that sets a person up to be really vulnerable for kind of the whirlwind, romantic, sociopathic type person to come in and just charm you. So it's good that you realize that. That's a big first step in all of this. And the shift over time, you'll start to see this love bombing as immature as it actually is. And you might still find that you have that pull towards these kind of whirlwind creating type people. I still do, but I can slow it down and I can see it for what it is. And I'm able to get out of that situation a lot faster than before. So that pull might still be there for you. But if you understand this is not real, like this is incredibly immature, this person doesn't know me well enough to love me, and they're just telling me everything that I want to hear, it's so much easier to walk away because you see it for what it is. And the way out of this, the way to really break that cycle, is to start building up your support system, start filling that empty bucket of attention and affection, and giving yourself now all of the stuff that you didn't get as a child. So all of that self-care, that self-love, that nourishment, that, really allowing yourself to time around other quality people, mainly friends and hobbies, realizing that that's important, and to cultivate all of that. Okay, let me scroll here. Okay, let's see here. Slavic Princess says, Dana, may I ask for more clarification on the lady you were just describing? Sure. Ask away, and I'll scroll down and see if I can find your response here. Siddharth says, do you have plans on doing a video live stream like Richard Grannon? I'm not sure what you're referring to or what he's doing. I mean, are you talking like a celebration of 50,000 subscribers, like that kind of a video? Let's see. Let me scroll down. Kari Dad says, why do we break our boundaries with these people? And we think it is because of love. Well, I think that's exactly why we break our boundaries with these people. We compromise our standards, we gloss over our deal breakers, and we justify these boundary pushes. It's generally because we're so starved out. We're hoping against hope that this relationship can be something other than it is. And so we're denying all of these problematic behaviors because we want this relationship to work. And we just keep holding on to hope, thinking that they'll change, or trying to blame ourselves and thinking, oh, it's just us. We need to be more understanding or compassionate or better with communication, or we need to somehow change in order to make this relationship work. And all of that it's problematic thinking. And that's a big part of healing from all of this, so it doesn't happen again, is to untangle all of that and get grounded enough in yourself and in your reality and your understanding of problematic behavior within other people, as well as your response to it, and as well as developing insight about your own. Because if we grew up in a dysfunctional family, odds are there's a lot of things, our thinking and our behaving, that really needs some examination. And frankly, this goes for pretty much 100% of the people out there. So it's not just us. I think everybody could benefit from, self introspection and self-awareness. Okay, let's see here. Siddharth says, oh, a video one-on-one, like with your subscribers. I guess what would be the difference? I'll have to go see what he's doing, because I'm not sure what you're referring to. So it's not what we're doing tonight? Like it's a different type of live stream? I don't know. We'll have to see. Agata, if you're still here, and if you know what Siddharth is talking about, can you let me know? Or James? Let's see. Natalie says, can you talk about numbness and disassociation after narcissistic abuse and domestic violence trauma and PTSD? I'm 6 weeks out and struggling. I sure can. So I think first and foremost, 6 weeks out is fresh out. And struggling is normal. Feeling like your world is blown apart is normal. Struggling with nightmares and feeling hypervigilant, as though you don't know who to trust and that you really can't trust yourself, like your judgment with other people, having trouble sleeping, eating, feeling tearful all of the time. All of that is very, very normal. The disassociation, feeling numbness, there's such a mix of emotions, especially I would say within like the first 3 months for sure. There's such sudden mood shifts. So there can be going from numbness to anger to almost like acceptance, but then back to nostalgia, and then to kind of oh, well, maybe this could work. And then, kind of going back to this false sense of hope. It's just like a pinball machine. You're just, the ball is just bouncing all over the place. And that's kind of what our emotions do during that initial time. These things do tend to settle down with time. So if you're in a situation where kind of everything is up in the air, finances are in question, housing is in question, kind of the basics, I would just encourage you to get those initial things lined up before you even work on handling anything more advanced than that. So kind of just getting, food, clothing, shelter, basic finances, get those foundational pieces in place. That'll help you feel a lot more stable. And then you can start working towards like the emotional pieces of the puzzle. As far as the disassociation, one of the reasons we all disassociate is it's that our reality is so uncomfortable and it's just too much for our brain to process all at once. So it's a defense mechanism, but it's also a coping mechanism. And there's a reason that your brain is doing that. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at here is you don't need to have all of the answers all at once. And you won't have all of the pieces of the puzzle all at once. And that's okay. That's normal. So how you're feeling right now is 100% normal. I would be concerned really if you were feeling any other way than how you're feeling right now. If you were completely at peace with everything and, we're skipping down the hallway, I would be concerned. So, try right now. I would just encourage you to really triple up on your self-care, because I will tell you, the one thing that I know for certain is that you will not look back on this period in your life and think to yourself, boy, I really wish I would have worried about things more. So you will look back on this and you will think, oh my goodness, I really wish I worried less. I really wish that I took better care of myself. If you enjoy hot baths, taking hot baths, or pampering yourself in all kinds of ways, feeding yourself nourishing food, practicing meditation. There's tons of relaxation videos on YouTube, making a point to listen to some of those at night, or even listening to something soothing at night, taking 10 minutes at the end of your day to just wind down and to bring as much peace and relaxation into your life as you possibly can at this time. And then over time, as your emotions start to level out and you become kind of more centered, less reactive, and it doesn't feel like your world is just so topsy-turvy, then at that point, there's different forms of therapy out there that really do help with PTSD. Some of them are EFT, which is like a tapping therapy where you tap different meridians and they help to kind of, it's very strange. It helps to release like the energy blocks of different emotions in your body. And then there's a therapy called EMDR, which is very similar, but it has to do with eye movement and working through different emotions. So, and I would also encourage you to pay attention to what you're feeding your brain during all of this and your body. So right now, if you're feeling hypervigilant, if you're struggling with a lot of anxiety, it would be really a good idea to cut out caffeine. I know that might seem such a trivial thing to say or to even consider doing. It makes an ocean of difference. So if you're a coffee drinker, switch to decaf coffee. If you drink pop, switching to caffeine free. If a huge difference. Like, please do not underestimate what a difference that can make. Even if you only drink 1 cup of something caffeinated a day. Paying attention to what you're feeding your brain. If I would encourage you to really make it a point to turn off the news. Anything that's agitating, now would not be the time to start watching Lifetime TV movies, the news, anything that's upsetting or stressful, or that could potentially trigger like nostalgia. Now is a good time for like documentaries and comedies and trying to think of what else. Stuff that's not going to kind of hit any major emotions with you. So, why there's so many videos now on YouTube, self-help kind of stuff. You can there's lots of like book club videos out there, stuff like that. That's what I would really guard what you're feeding your brain. It makes a huge, huge difference. Okay, so let me scroll up here. I hope that helped. Natalie says, I'm surviving on nicotine and caffeine, and I got to get that under control. Even if, like I said, even if you can switch to something that's decaf, it just makes it can make the difference between having a panic attack and not. Even one cup of coffee. So if your body is already, producing all of us like adrenaline and cortisol, and you're just already at this kind of red line level, any added caffeine to that can just push a person over. It just doesn't take a whole lot when you're already at that point. Okay, let's see here. Let me scroll up. Natalie says, I did EMDR for previous trauma 10 years ago. Very cool. What did you think of it? Did you find that it helped you? I've been meaning to take a session. I've been wanting to do a session of EFT and EMDR and record it. And so that way I could experience it and then talk about, just report back, I guess, basically. So I'm always curious to know what people experienced with that, because I haven't done that yet. Dee Petrucci says, I just received a phone call from a friend. She's a flying monkey now, seeing my ex narcissist. I have no idea what to do. Well, is this the only person that's in your life? Like, is she within a circle? Here's what I would do. If you can, if she's not like interwoven within your circle of friends, I would just cut contact completely. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't return a phone call. I would just block and ignore and drive on. If you can't do that for whatever reason, I would just go gray rock and be completely unreactive. If you return her text, you just act like it's totally no big deal, that you're totally over your ex. You're not even remotely emotionally impacted at all by the relationship. You're not bothered in the slightest that they're dating, because everything you tell her is going to get back to him. And he's going to eat this up if he finds out, because you have to keep in mind, what he's told her is very different than what happened. So just realize that. And yeah, I would just keep the conversation really light. If she wants to talk about your relationship with him or anything about him, I would just really play it cool. Like, oh girl, that was so long ago. I don't know. That was a lifetime ago. Like, I have moved on. I do not need to think about him or talk about him. Like, it's not that I care. That was the old me. Like, that was a lifetime ago. And then just change the topic. Okay, good to know. Grace says, Dana, consider 3 sessions. It does take a bit to get going with EMDR. Okay, that's good to know. Metamorphosis says, Dana, can you talk about the complex post-traumatic stress disorder from childhood emotional neglect? I'm discovering that this may be why I have dated and married narcissists. Oh, that's such a great big, such a great big topic. And an important topic. So kind of like what I was talking about earlier with empty buckets. So if we grow up in an environment, Pia Melody, I think, phrases this beautifully. She refers to it as a less than nourishing environment. So less than nourishing parenting, which the reason I like that is because it expands that kind of problematic behavior. It really opens it up. And it can make a lot more sense to a lot of people, especially if they haven't experienced overt abuse or even covert abuse. If they just had parents that were depressed or parents that were incredibly busy, if they weren't getting enough nourishment, they just weren't getting enough nourishment. And now as an adult, they're having to kind of realizing the impact of that on their lives. So realizing, okay, these are some buckets. We all have these different buckets, right? We have an emotional needs bucket. Generally, if you're kind of thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's, love and safety and belonging. And then above that, it's kind of these self-esteem needs. We got to feel good about ourselves and cultivating self-esteem. And we also have physical needs, which would be below all of that, which food, clothing, shelter, these kinds of things. And if a person is at a certain step on Maslow's hierarchy, it's really difficult for them to become self-actualized. So self-actualized would be at the very top of that pyramid. And so, for example, if you're struggling with something where, let's say you find out that you have cancer, your brain is going to downshift. Everything above the physical level is now not important. And so your brain is downshifted into, we've got to get these physical needs met. Health and safety are now top priority. Really nothing else matters. And then once that need is kind of balanced out, then we start kind of going back up the pyramid. So if you were starved out emotionally or just weren't getting enough attention or affection or were neglected, then we're kind of having to compensate for that as an adult. And we do that in a wide variety of ways. Really, the main one is we tend to fall for all of the wrong people because we're so starved out. It's sort of like, what was that book? I think it was a Dr. Seuss book where it was called Are You My Mother? And I think it was a little bird who, I might have the story wrong. I think it was a little bird that fell out of the nest, correct me if I'm wrong, who goes around saying, are you my mother? And just going around from creature to creature, from like a frog to a dog to all of these different animals, trying to figure out like, where do I belong? And will you take care of me? Like, are you my mother? And that's kind of very much along the lines of what we do as human beings when we're so starved out, when we're so kind of lost at sea emotionally, and we're looking for those warm strokes from somebody. We're basically going up to anybody saying, are you my mother? And the problematic people of the world are they can sense that out a mile away. And their response is, oh, I am your mother. I am everything that you need me or want me to be. I will be here for you. I won't hurt you. I will love you completely. And they're so quick to just, come on so strong. And when we're starved out, we continue to fall for that. And it's just a problem because that's, healthy, mature people don't do that. They don't act that way and they don't fall into it. And so if we're continuing to fall into it, then there's some stuff within ourselves that needs to be addressed. And that can take a person a while to see, and it can really feel very victim blaming and re-victimizing in some ways. But just please believe me on that. Like, there's definitely the strong correlation there. And it took me years to see this, because when I kept getting tangled up with these people, it really felt like a hit and run accident. And I didn't see, I'm like, well, what was I doing wrong? I mean, this person was so charming and funny and intelligent and the total package. And so the only thing I did wrong was see the good in them, gloss over all the red flags, trust them immediately, and take them for face value. And I didn't see how that could be a problem. I thought I'm like, isn't this what we're all doing? Like, it happened to blow up in my face, but I see lots of people doing that and it works fine for them. And then I realized over time, no, actually, just because it's working out for some people, it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And the only way to stop getting tangled up with these people is to examine a lot of these really dysfunctional beliefs that we're taught by either parents or by society or, music or media or you name it. So, really learning to move slow. So much of this stuff comes from really truly like understanding what it means to love yourself. Loving your, in substance, if that's tripping you up, substitute the word love for the word value. So really learning to value yourself, which includes valuing your energy, valuing your time, valuing your emotions, valuing your body in all ways. Just taking complete care of yourself. And once we do that, it's a lot easier to be aware of when we're used to taking care of ourselves, getting our needs and wants met. We know what it feels like to be nourished because we're able to do it ourselves. When we can get to that place, we're much more in tune with how it feels when we're being mistreated, neglected, or abused, or what have you, by others. And that's a big part in healing, is we've got to be able to develop that level of kind of situational awareness and self-awareness of when you're being mistreated, when something's not resonating with you, when it's time to leave, when a situation is problematic. And so when I talk about, it's important for us to really value and to make it a top priority is our safety and our sanity. These need to really be kind of the North Star that you steer into. How does this impact, how does anything, your job, your friends, your hobbies, your anything, impact your safety and your sanity? And so if you're finding yourself considering a friendship or a job or a relationship, but it's causing you tremendous amounts of upset with your safety and your sanity, then that's a problem. There's no need for that. There's lots of jobs and people out in the world that there's no need to put yourself in harm's way. So really kind of combing through a lot of this dysfunctional thinking. And like I said, well, we all have it, because the dysfunctional thinking is truly what the normal thinking is. And so what's normal can't be our guiding light. We have to really figure out, okay, what's healthy? Because normal truly is just different degrees of dysfunction, and it's just going to get you straight back into the mud. So make sure that you're using the right measuring stick, and not your best friend's marriage, or your grandmother's or grandfather's marriage, or how is somebody else, they got engaged on the third date and, they're still fine, or, any of this stuff. Like, it really just comes from understanding like what's healthy, you setting the pace, moving slow, valuing your energy, your time, your emotions, and understanding what it feels like when a situation feels off. And then also understanding how to go about addressing it. So our old strategies used to be hoping and coping, right? We hope that they change, and then we cope if they don't. Whereas the new us, there's this other option, which is, learning to be assertive. So saying, hey, you know what, this is concerning, or this isn't working for me, setting boundaries, having standards, having deal breakers, and then also being willing to walk away. Because this is a big piece that a lot of people miss, is they confuse, they are assertive, but they're missing the deal breaker part of it. So they'll sit there and they'll be like, well, I just keep telling her, this isn't working for me, and this isn't working for me, and she just keeps doing it. And I don't know, I just, I've told her 30 times and I just don't get why this keeps going on. And at that point, especially at that point, really after like the third time you say something to somebody of, hey, I'm not okay with you, flirting with my sister, or, whatever it might be, yelling at me, treating me that way, whatever it is. If it continues on, then they've really shown you where their respect for you ends. Like, they're just going to keep doing that. So then at some point, we have to really get clear on where our deal breakers, so we don't just stay and get dragged through hell again. It would be worth it if you have found that you have a pattern of these people in your life to go back through and write down what was the hook, what had you. And odds are it's probably not just relationships, it's probably friendships as well. Because it's sort of with this kind of stuff, when we have these unexamined vulnerabilities, this stuff surfaces in so many more ways than we ever thought possible. It might have been this problematic relationship that brought you here, but I guarantee if you start kind of thinking, well, you know what? Yeah, I had a problematic boss, or I had a real manipulative coworker, and this, that, and the other. If you'd ever been truly like wrapped up with these, like tangled up with these people, it's really a good exercise to write down what it was about you that about them that drew you in, and then start seeing, okay, what's the pattern here? So, okay. Let's see, let me scroll up here. Ty says, I love the community of books idea. That's where I've been lately. That's been my social support group because I really had to insulate from people. Yes. And, thank goodness for the internet. Like there's so many options nowadays, and YouTube, is a big place. Like there are so many channels out there. There's channels on crafts. There's channels on, there's channels that do movie reviews. I'm really interested in writing, so I watch a lot of. There's one channel I forget what it's called, but it's about screenplays, and they go through different scenes and like what makes a scene work and what doesn't and why. And even though I'm not into screenplays, it's just so interesting. And same thing there's a film channel called This Guy Edits that I just love. And he'll also go through different scenes of movies and explain what makes them work and what doesn't. So stuff like that is just so far away from all of this stuff that it can just give your brain a break. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, EXO says, narcissists can't stand to see someone take care of themselves. Narcissists are always aiming to drain and dominate all of your time and energy so you do nothing for yourself. Yeah. Yep, that sounds about right. Let's see here. Postmodern, kind of seeing bits and pieces of what's going on with you. So I kind of caught that you had a breakup and it was really painful. And I just wanted to say, I'm just so sorry that you've gone through this. It's a lot. That's just a lot to go through. Okay, let's see here. Metamorphosis says, Dana, I think I started to value myself for the first time in the past 2 years. I quit working for a narcissist, and then I left my narcissistic husband. I started to say, I deserve better. So this makes sense. Yes. And, Tony Robbins, big self-help guru, one of the things that he has said, and he said many things that have really resonated with me, but one of the things that he said was the quickest way to change your life is to raise your standards. And I just think that is so profound. He is so spot on with that. And so when we do start fully acknowledging that of, you know what, I deserve better. I deserve better. And we start to we might not feel like that's true when we start saying that out loud, but over time, you can start believing it. Of, you know what, this is not worth my time or my energy or my effort. Like, this is not for me. Like, I not doing it. It's amazing how much more your life will start working for you when you can start like acknowledging how you truly feel about situations and like what works for you and just what doesn't. And then learning how to, how to be assertive and how to address that with other people. And it's just, it's exciting when a person gets to that place in healing, because it's just such a game changer. And, I talk about too, the whole like narcissistic abuse thing. So many people will often say, boy, it's, it really is like falling down this rabbit hole and understanding narcissism and sociopathy and all this, right? And people will often joke, boy, I feel like I just got a degree in psychology. This is so much. And while it can feel like you're going down a rabbit hole with understanding narcissism, there's a second rabbit hole to all of that. And that's with understanding yourself. And that truly is just, it's so insightful and awakening and enlightening when you start going down that rabbit hole, because so many things start making sense and you just start connecting the dots to all of these different pieces of your life. And it's just, it's phenomenal. It's just such a game changer. The way you interact with other people and with yourself at kind of on the other side of all this is radically different. It's incredibly, much better than before, much better. So for those of you that are fresh out and you're feeling like I feel blown apart, I'm feeling broken. And if you're thinking like, oh, I've got to heal from this, I just want you to know, actually, I want you to know a couple of things. I guess first and foremost, so Natalie, this is for you. I think it's really important to realize that healing isn't about going back to the way you were. Okay. So life is about growth, and growth is always about moving forward. So true healing is not about going back to the way you were. It's about moving forward. It's about getting in touch with your inner self, your authentic self, getting in touch with your wants and your needs and your thoughts and your feelings and who you are at the core, like what nourishes you, what drains you. And then on top of that, it's really working towards creating a new and empowered understanding of yourself and of the world around you. And it's completely possible to there's a concept out there that's called post-traumatic growth. And it's what happens on the other side of post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's a level of growth that can only be found on the other side of PTSD. So the growth that happens, so in normal psychology, when a person goes through some sort of trauma or painful event, normal psychology was with the understanding of this concept of resiliency. So something happens, we're not doing really well. And so then the goal is we really want to get this person back up to like their baseline level of functioning, to kind of get them the resilience and the coping skills to get back to where they were. The beautiful thing about the post-traumatic growth concept and like positive psychology movement in general, it's about, hey, you know what? Let's shatter that glass ceiling of who we were. Let's aim higher. Why aim for the baseline of who we were? Let's aim so much higher than that. And that's really, I feel like that's what this channel is about. And that's what we're about here is creating and finding that new level. And it is possible. Okay. Natalie says, yes, Dana, starting anew. I have a huge healing journey ahead of me. Yes. And I just, I guess I want you to know you're not alone in that, and that the journey it's well worth it. And it's sort of like the saying goes, if you find yourself walking through hell, keep walking. So there's a lot of kind of these long stretches of road, I think, in that journey of healing that can feel like they never end, but they do. They do. Just keep walking. Many of your best days are still ahead of you. There's there's just so much exciting things to discover about yourself, and you can rebuild your life. You truly, truly can. Siddharth says, that's so true, Dana, about that rabbit hole. But we shouldn't be stuck in there forever like most victims on YouTube. Yes, I agree. Well, that first rabbit hole, the understanding narcissism part of it, and I guess here's something that I kind of mull over often, is how can I go about expediting another person's healing process? And is that possible? How can I do this in a way that doesn't re-traumatize them or cause them to shut down and feel re-victimized, or just lash out in anger and then just completely, turn away? So, because the rabbit hole of understanding narcissism is an important thing. It's, when something happens to you that's so outside the realm of normal, people, and I get it because I was there too, they get stuck in this, I need to understand what happened to me in order to protect myself from it. And then understanding of, oh my goodness, not everybody in the world is like me. And oh my goodness, I really thought that I would be able to see a dangerous and destructive person coming, and I didn't. And that's terrifying when we realize that our map of the world is incomplete. So that's where a lot of this hypervigilance and distrust of others and distrust of ourselves and all of this comes from. It's for very logical reasons. It's terrifying when you realize, oh my goodness, I have been misreading people and situations, and that there's these problematic people out there that walk the earth. And my old understanding of how they operated was incomplete. So it's really understanding and learning this whole new skill set of learning what abuse is, learning what manipulation is, learning that there's people out there that have such problematic behavior that it's termed a personality disorder. Learning that your skill set of, again, how most of us go through the world of, continual second and 22nd chances, and seeing the good in people, and kind of continuing to quote unquote forgive and forget, and putting ourselves last, and making other people a priority, and all of this stuff that we've been doing. If it's not within the context of self-love and healthy boundaries, if we're not valuing our time, our energy, our emotions, our body in order to take care of somebody else, we're out of balance, and things aren't going to work. So, but back to like the whole bunny hole of narcissism, that often takes a person years to kind of go through, to understand. They have a ton of questions. I'm hoping, I think that support groups especially really do cut down a lot of that searching time, kind of that info gathering stage. And then the bunny hole to understanding ourselves, I think, frankly, I think that's a lifelong process. But getting a person up and going with that, I don't know. So much of this stuff, I think when a person has the awareness of what's going on, and they're open to exploring these different things, and realizing that our boundaries and standards and deal breakers have been eroded in ways that we never thought possible. Like, it's worth examining our vulnerabilities and how these problematic people got into our life. And that's how we move forward. It's shifting the focus onto us is how we move forward. But kind of the fundamentals of understanding problematic behavior, I think, is a very necessary first step for a lot of people. D. Petrucci says, it's been difficult to spot in my soul where I began to withhold trust. I'm wondering if I will ever trust again. And EXO says that is a normal issue when you have learned about abusive people. You see it everywhere, and then you have to figure out who and if anyone is trustworthy slowly. Yes, and that you're spot on with that. So this is one of the biggest shifts that so many of us have had to make, is realizing, oh my goodness, quote unquote, normal people tend to go through life trusting others. We think other people are like us. We take them at face value, especially if they have some pretty major similarities to us. If, let's say, they're the same religion as you, they're the same profession as you, these kind of things can give a person a false sense of connection and trust that hasn't been established. So realizing, okay, it's not a good idea to take a person at face value, and we just have to move slowly and open up, because we value our energy, our emotions, our time, and our body. We're opening up to a person gradually. We're not going to be a total open book, like not right away, not off the bat. So we need to make sure, is this person, are they worthy of knowing all of this really delicate stuff about me? You know, is this person somebody that's worth my time and energy and emotions? And is this somebody, that sounds really harsh, but I guess in more of a, like a that sounds really judgmental, and I didn't mean for that to sound judgmental, but is this somebody that, where we can invest in each other, that I can invest my time and energy and emotions in, and then, odds are they're thinking the same thing about us. So there's got to be that level of like reciprocity there. It's got to be a two-way street as far as like, building trust and nourishing each other and that kind of thing. The problematic people of the world tend to move really fast. They tend to either demand trust or they push for it. They will tell you, you can trust me. They'll tell you everything that you need to hear in order to drop your trust. And these are all red flags. Normal people with solid intentions don't say things like that. They understand boundaries. They don't need to push you into trusting them, because it's sort of like, don't listen to, just watch what I do. Like, don't listen to me. I don't have a history of stealing from people. Do you know what I mean? Like, their behavior, their actions match their words. And that kind of stuff just comes with time. I think where we have struggled with trust is when we're consistently seeing the good in other people or glossing over the bad. That is all kind of code for, we're not seeing the situation clearly. We're seeing what we want to see. That's huge to fully understand that. So the healthy way to go about this is just you set the pace. So especially when you're meeting new people, is you dictate how often you see them. You're dictating how often you want to talk, or how long you want to talk for, or what you tell them. There was a book we read a while back, and I forget the title of it, but it talked about, it was really important to make the shift from having the zipper on the outside to putting the zipper on the inside. And I thought that was such a great analogy, because that's exactly what it is. So many of us have been going through life with the zipper on the outside. And so we've been allowing other people to set the pace. So they just unzip however much they want to unzip, and we just allow it. And if it's too much, then we just excuse their behavior, and we just go along with it. And so that's a big change, realizing that a healthy way to approach this is you set the pace, you turn that zipper on the inside. So if somebody wants to know things about you, they want to see you more than you're comfortable with. They want you to do things that you're not okay with, that you're grounded enough in yourself and in your reality to just say no, or to be tactful about it and just say, I'm busy tonight, or I really appreciate that you want to get to know me, but we just started, we're on the second date, and I'm not comfortable going into my divorce, or my childhood wounds. Like, this is a later stage conversation. And if it's a person that respects your boundaries, they'll respect that. And so trust is built with appropriate behavior over a consistent period of time. There's no shortcut to that. It just takes time to get to know a person. And if they're a new person, that trust doesn't even start to get built until you're I'm talking just starting to get built at about the 3-month mark. So generally at about 6 months is when you're really starting to be like, okay, I can trust this person with more stuff. So it's just a very different way of interacting with the world. Monica says, it would be great to see a movie come out on the big screen that is about a real story of someone who went through the narcissistic abuse and the recovery process. Yeah, I agree. I think it would be great for it to be very in-depth. I think the closest movie that I can think of that comes to that is the Tina Turner story. And, this Ike Turner was absolutely ridiculous. He was so awful on so many levels. And she just went through absolute hell with him. And I mean, look at her now. I mean, she just rose like a phoenix from that whole experience and just became stronger and more powerful and more centered in herself, and just an amazing, amazing woman after that experience. But it would be helpful to kind of see the middle part between the abuse and the rising like a phoenix, like more of what healing is really like. Oh, so I wanted to mention too, speaking about a pattern of people in our lives, because Monica was saying about seeing a real story of somebody that went through narcissistic abuse. I heard a great Mark Twain quote today that said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." And I thought, that is so spot on. And that is the reason why so many of us tend to get tangled up with these people, because they're not all the same. They all come across in different ways. It's different versions of the same story. You might have one problematic person who was really self-absorbed and arrogant and just verbally abusive. But then you might have another one that's incredibly charming and kind and attentive. And then another one who is very aloof and who, won't ever apologize and difficult and demanding. And do you see what I'm saying? Like the end behavior is kind of the repeating theme is this really destructive degree of selfishness, but it comes across in many different ways. So that's one of my main issues with these other channels out there that are supposedly with narcissists educating people. It's ridiculous because it's just their point of view, but like it's not they can only speak from their experience, right? Of like, this is how they go about manipulating or, treating people in a certain way. But all problematic people are very, very different. So it's really important to understand that they all don't come across the same way. Some might love bomb, some might not. Some might be very good listeners. Others might be terrible listeners. Some might make you their whole world. Some might demand that you make them their whole world. So this is why I really feel like it's important to focus on, we can't even begin to anticipate all of the different ways that manipulators go about manipulating. We really can't, because as soon as we level up and get wise to it, then they're going to level up, and then we're going to level up, and then they're going to level up. It's just this continual kind of cat and mouse game. But the only thing that we really can do is get centered enough within ourselves that we are aware of what something feels like when it feels off, and that we're setting the pace to where another person isn't, leading us by the nose down whatever path that they want us to go down, that we're okay with asserting ourselves and admitting, like, this doesn't work for me. And I don't care. It doesn't matter if they're a narcissist. It doesn't matter if they're a codependent. It doesn't matter if they're, survivor of abuse. It doesn't matter. If I'm not okay with it, I'm not okay with it. That's all that matters. That is such an important shift to make. Okay, let me see here. Yes, Agata mentions this excitement bucket. So I'm going to try to do this conversation justice. So we were talking earlier about, well, mainly it was Agata that was talking earlier. I'm going to give you credit for this because it was genius. This concept of an excitement bucket. And she said, I really think that we have this other bucket. It's not just emotional needs. It's not just physical needs or like self-esteem needs or any of this stuff. We also have this bucket for excitement. And if we don't have a lot that's going on in our life, then we tend to seek out this excitement. So this comes across in a wide variety of ways. Generally, if we're on the receiving end of like love bombing, that level of intensity can fill that excitement bucket. Like we're craving some sort of change, we're craving excitement in our life. I think anything dangerous can also fill that excitement bucket. Anything that kind of quickens the pulse fills that excitement bucket, whether it's bungee jumping or taking up a new hobby on the more mild end, or learning a new skill or meeting some new people. There's ways that we can get that excitement bucket filled in healthy ways. And there's definitely ways that we can get it filled in all of the wrong ways. And for those people that tend to find themselves with really dangerous and destructive people, that's also worth looking at of how was my life before this person came into it? Was I sad? Was I lonely? Was I bored? And was the thrill, the pull of them that they were so impulsive and exciting and just, I think it's just that impulsivity of a lot of problematic people it can feel kind of fun because they're so free. They just, pack up and do whatever. And, then later you find out, oh my gosh, no, this person's incredibly impulsive and reckless even. So it's just something to consider. Slavic Princess says, do you ever download videos from YouTube? No, I'm not sure what you mean by that. But I know that I don't download any videos from YouTube. Are you talking video? Do I download other people's videos or do I put up videos do I put up other videos besides live streams? Is that what you're asking? Let's see. Donna Cooper says, leveling up, question mark, question mark. Yeah, just basically what I meant by that is when, scammers, manipulators manipulate in a certain way. And as long as it's working the vast majority of time, they're going to keep doing it. But once it stops working, once people catch on, they become wise to it. So they catch on, they kind of quote unquote level up. They just they get wiser. So then the manipulators have got to get more, they've got to shift up the game. They've got to shake things up. And so then they shake things up and then that works for a while, but then people become wiser. The game stops working. The manipulators, so it's just this constant battle. Oh, okay. Slavic Princess says, I was asking another question to somebody else in the chat. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Kiara, you're so spot on with that. And that's such a beautiful insight. She says, Dana, I've recently learned the importance of silence. I have horrible PTSD related intrusive thoughts, and I typically I numb them out with crappy YouTube videos, but silence needs to seep into your wounds. Yes. And it can be so difficult to just be still when there's so much that's going on, and if we're finding ourselves kind of oscillating between disassociating and that compulsive thinking. So it tends to kind of be these two extremes. We're either trying to completely escape reality. So we're numb to things, we're disassociating, we're daydreaming all the time, we're kind of fantasizing about kind of either the past or the future. We're just not in the moment because the moment's really uncomfortable. Like that's why we try to escape reality when reality is not comfortable. And then the other side of that is when we wish we could almost disassociate, right? So it's like we're so caught up in things. It's all of this compulsive thinking, and our brain just doesn't shut off, and that's exhausting as well. But yes, learning to kind of become comfortable again with your reality in small moments, and that takes time and that takes practice. And I think it also takes a lot of reassurance from yourself, just realizing, that you are here, you are in this moment, you are safe. You know what it feels like when something is right for you and what it feels like when something is off. And you know how to respond to it now. You have a huge new skill set, and you realize that it's okay. Like you don't need this concrete proof that this person is in fact really going to hurt you. All you need to know is this is not okay with me, and this is how I'm going to start distancing myself. So I think that's a big part with getting comfortable with reality, is to reassure yourself that reality can be a safe place. It wasn't safe before because the only skill set that many of us had was either hoping or coping. There wasn't this thought of, oh, I could actually leave. It was more of the focus on, I don't have the problem, they have the problem, they need to change. I don't want to leave. I love this person. I have children with this person. We own a house together. I don't want to leave. I have a whole life with this person. They just need to wake up and they need to change. And then the new us realizes that's not an effective way of handling the situation, because we can't change other people. And we realize, okay, we've got to substitute that coping and hoping for being assertive and for having deal breakers and reclaiming our power and control over our own lives. Okay, let's see here. Rob says, yes, and sometimes it's the type of friends you hang out with after leaving a toxic relationship. So I'm just going to touch on that for a little bit. It's really common for people, because you're learning a new skill set. You're learning a brand new way of interacting with the world, of understanding other people, of understanding yourself. There's a huge new skill set that you're learning. And it's like any other skill set. It's going to take time and it's going to take practice. There's just no shortcut to that. And, when we start kind of waking up to problematic behavior, we do start seeing it everywhere. And we're like, man, there's all these manipulators in my life, and I have some at work, and I've had some friends in the past, and maybe I have some friends now. And you just start you start seeing it. And this can make a person really start to doubt themselves even more. Like, oh my goodness, I must just be really hyper vigilant. I'm seeing manipulative people and abusers everywhere. And the reality is, more likely than not, it's just that you're becoming aware of problematic behavior. Whereas the old you, the former you, was most likely glossing over a lot of that stuff, giving people the benefit of the doubt, assuming, oh, they must be tired, they must be stressed out, it must be because of their childhood, it must be, I must have heard wrong, they didn't really mean it. All of these justifications that we all gave, right? But now we're like, oh my goodness, I can see, you have this new increased vocabulary for everything. Like I understand what gaslighting is. I understand what projection is, and triangulation, and love bombing, and the cycle of narcissistic abuse. Like you're understanding all of this, and the more vocabulary a person has surrounding all of this, the more your world, it just broadens your world. When you have more vocabulary for things, you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that was a concept, but now that I've heard the word for it, I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. That's also kind of I think the benefit of people that speak multiple languages, is their understanding of the world is just so much richer because they have more words to be able to describe things. So so that's a big part of it, is just increasing your vocabulary about that. But then when you start realizing, oh my goodness, there's people in my life like that were in as friends or as coworkers that are problematic, or even new people that you're meeting that you thought were friends. And then it can be very discouraging when you start seeing this and you're like, man, what is wrong with me? I just feel like I'm a lightning rod for these people, and they just keep coming into my life, and I don't know what it is, and I just keep attracting them. And then realizing once we start reclaiming our power and control, then we realize it doesn't matter if we're attracting them. What matters is who we're attracted to, and the kinds of people that we're keeping in our life. Because abusers and manipulators are attracted to a wide range of people for a wide range of reasons. So trying to prevent them being attracted to you is screaming into the wind. It's totally pointless. It's more about who you're attracted to, who you keep into your life. And because this is a brand new skill set, this is one of the reasons I really encourage people to go to meetup.com and to practice these skills. This is probably the best, the safest, most kind of non-threatening way to practice these skills. You're around people that hopefully have similar interests because you're joining groups. Generally, these groups are free or they're very low cost, like $5 to join. And you're playing trivia, you're learning, you're taking a cooking class, you're doing all different kinds of things, and you're interacting with basically the general public. And it gives you a good practice for boundaries and standards and deal breakers and being assertive and all of this. And if these situations don't work for you, you can always get up and leave. That's the benefit of that. So it's the emotional investment in, total strangers and then the situation is very low. So it's much easier to practice under those stakes than it is with your family or with, your children or people that you've been friends with for 20 years. Carmelita says, I miss the podcasts. Will you put up any more? Yes, I'm so sorry. I have been so overwhelmed and just completely overwhelmed for the past forever. But it's been really bad for the past couple months. And so, yes, I need to get back in the swing of that. But yes, that is something that I plan on doing. So I'll work on that tomorrow. I'm going to make a note to myself. I meant to put up some today and I don't know what my problem is, why I've been avoiding that, but making a note, putting it on my monitor to get that going. Okay, let me scroll down here. Yes. Rob says, yes, can't prevent who comes towards you, but you can be attracted to what you want, right? Yes, absolutely. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing is it's shifting from it's making the shift to understanding yourself. So many of us have been so focused on basically reading other people and trying to uh, adapt ourselves to what everybody else wants us to become, and how being, saying yes when we mean no, and this people pleasing and all of this stuff, and so focused on, you know, being chosen instead of being choosy, and when we make that shift into, okay, well, what do I really want? What works for me? What am I attracted to? And then, the whole, especially the whole process of dating, it's about elimination. It's about being discerning. It's about being picky. Like, if you're going to be picky, dating is the time to do it. So really getting clear on, like, what are the things that matter to you, and what are the things that are flexible. Getting clear on that. So yes, it's about knowing yourself well enough to know this is what's for me and this is what's not for me in every single aspect of your life. Okay, let's see here. Natalie asks, Dana, can you talk about traumatic amnesia? I feel like I'm in a fog. I can barely remember the last 2 years of narcissistic abuse due to major gaslighting. Okay, let me stop the chat here so I can address that. So yes, there's a term. It's generally referred to as like abuse amnesia. And it's when a person is going through a really, and I would say I like the term traumatic amnesia better, because I do think it extends to any situation that's incredibly traumatic, whether it's a car accident, an abusive relationship, you name it. When a person goes through something traumatic, if it's too much for our brain to process, it just starts blocking a lot of that out. It's still there. I mean, those memories are still there. They're just not in our active memory. And so over time, those memories start to resurface. And people, maybe somebody says something, we hear a song, something kind of triggers this moment of, oh my goodness, I completely forgot about that. Like, that's wild. How on earth did I ever forget that? That was such a major thing. And that's kind of its own level of crazy making, to think, how on earth could I have forgotten that? But it's not. It's basically your brain is suppressing a lot of the trauma because it was just too much for it to process. These memories, like I said, they do tend to surface with time. I wouldn't force it. There's a reason that your brain is suppressing it, and it's okay. It's just going to come forward when it's ready to come forward, and then you can start working through it. But also, if you experienced gaslighting for 2 years, there's a very solid chance that one of the reasons that you're not remembering things is because of the sheer amount of confusion that was present during that time. So if my guess would be that if we're experiencing tremendous amount of confusion when, you've got a person that's, you think you're saying, oh, that's up. And they're saying up is down and down is up all of the time. And you don't have a solid footing in reality. I would think it would be very hard for the brain to actually track any of that, because there's nothing really solid to hold on to, because your reality keeps shifting. You think, let's say, for example, you think that they're cheating and they say they're not. You catch, them texting somebody else, they say they're not, or they delete the messages and then show you their phone with no messages on it, and then tell you that you're crazy, that those messages never existed, like this kind of stuff. So it takes a while to kind of to get more of those pieces, and then to put those in place to where things start to actually make sense. Because the whole time you were working with a very fragmented reality. very fragmented perception and understanding of reality. So I would really focus at this point. Like I said, this stuff will surface if and when it's ready to surface. I would just really make your self-care a top priority right now. Just triple, quadruple it up as much as you possibly can in every single way, shape, and form. It's, kind of like treating yourself as though you have like the emotional flu, where you're just being really gentle with yourself. You're not pushing yourself. You're allowing yourself to kind of curl up and get lost in a good book, or to watch, a documentary or a comedy show, or to spend some time with some quality people that you might have in your life, to do other things that it feels like it's really nourishing you. This would be for sure the time to do all of that. The rest, there's time. The rest can be dealt with in time. But I think there is kind of such a thing as trying to do too much too soon. And the basics, making sure, food, clothing, shelter. Are you eating okay? Are you sleeping okay? Do you have your basic needs met? Getting that stuff in order, and then just being extra good to yourself. The rest of the healing and understanding, it'll come in waves and it'll come over time. Okay, let's see here. Lots of questions here. I'm trying to sort through them all. Sam's sister says hi. Hi, Sam's sister. Looks like she came to visit and they're having some pizza, so that's good. Elizabeth says triangulation to me is the hardest to deal with. And, I think all of this stuff is so difficult to deal with when you're not aware of what's going on. It's just so easy. This stuff just grabs you, and it's so easy to get sucked into it and to take it for face value. And, oh gosh, it's just awful. It's just awful. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, there's just a lot of, I'm getting lost in the chat. I'm okay, working, trying to find some questions here. Let's see, cha-cha-cha. Ty says, what are flying monkeys? Sorry for all the questions. Well, don't apologize, because this is the place for it. Flying monkeys, that term comes from The Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch had those really creepy monkeys and that they would do her bidding. And so they would attack Dorothy and Dorothy's friends. And narcissists are very much the same way. So because they spin reality, and they, of course, leave out everything that they've done wrong. They paint themselves as the victim of the situation. Any normal, decent person, if they don't see that side of them, and the narcissist is saying, oh man, my ex is so awful. She lies all the time. She's so manipulative. I really have been trying to divorce her for years now, but every single time I do, she threatens to take half of everything. And she's lied to me before and told me she has cancer, and she's just so manipulative. because most other people take other people at face value, they're going to be inclined to be like, wow, your ex is awful. I'm totally on your side. And then they want to defend them and they go into attack mode. And so they might start harassing the target and calling them at work, sending them nasty text messages or emails, um, stalking them on social media, stalking them in real life, keying their car, all kinds of things to just harass and heckle the target because they think the target is really the abuser. So it's, awful stuff. Bonnie says, wow, I don't have quality, safe people in my life. And, I think this is a really big realization that I think a lot of us come to of, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that I could be discerning about who I let in my life. Maybe we were friends with people because they wanted to be friends with us. And so we hung out with people because we either felt obligated to, or we felt guilty if we didn't. It was never because we actually truly enjoyed their company. And if they were an emotionally unsafe person, if they lied, or if they were just unsafe in other ways, they stole from us, they, the triangulation, all of this stuff, if they were doing all of that, generally because we didn't know what it was, we were confused. And so we gave them the benefit of the doubt. We thought we must have heard wrong. We just excused a lot of this behavior instead of, being like, I don't want this in my life, and kind of, distancing ourselves emotionally or physically from that person. And then actually, so it's a big shift to start interacting with the world where it's like, okay, I'm going to interact with people in a very intentional way, in a very discerning way of these are the kind of people that I want in my life. And this is what an emotionally safe person acts like. And these are the kind of friendships that I want to cultivate. And then realizing, okay, I might make new friends with 5 people. And out of those 5, half of them, once I really get to know them better, might not be the kind of people that I'm looking for. They might have some pretty major stuff going on with them that I just don't want to take on, whatever that might be. So it's just really guarding who's in your inner circle. Or maybe they've got stuff going on where you're like, I really like this person. They just have a ton of stuff in their life right now. I can't handle that because I'm really focused on healing. So I still enjoy this person, but I think for now, I kind of need to keep them at arm's length, at more of that acquaintance level. Because I can't have all of their stuff in my inner circle. Like, it's just too much for me. So it's just, like I said, interacting with the world in a very different way. Slavic Princess says, what do you think about me having a strong desire to always be honest with myself and about my childhood trauma, to where I am going to follow through with not seeing my toxic parents during the holidays and the rest of my life? I think there's 2 things I'd like to say about that. The first being, I think you are the expert on your own life, first and foremost. And because of that, I support you in whatever decision that you want to make. And the second part to that is, I would strongly encourage you to not give other people's opinions any weight, any say so in what you end up doing, because you are the expert on your own life. So if you're realizing, you know what, this is so toxic and there was so much that happened that I can't have this in my life. And if you've thought I mean, if it sounds like you've thought this through. So if you have, then that's your decision to make. And, I support you in that. So I guess maybe the question is, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about cutting off all contact for holidays and for the rest of your life? Okay, let's see here. Siddharth says, hey, Dana, that red coffee cup is amazing. Did you get it on Amazon? You mean my bowl, my bowl of tea that I have every Wednesday? I don't remember where I got this thing. I think probably, I feel like I get everything from Amazon. I think there's a very solid chance that this came from Amazon, but let me see if there's anything on the bottom. It says room essentials. Actually, I think I got this at Target. Now that I'm thinking about it. You could probably find it on Amazon though. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll down here. Slavic Princess says, thank you for acknowledging my question. Dana, I love you. I feel empowered. Good deal. I think you need to steer into, what is nourishing for you. Slavic Princess says, absolutely empowered. The thing is, I am shocking my subconscious mind completely. Can you speak a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that? Missouri Cowboy says, has anyone ever had the person the ex cheated with apologize to them, change their behavior, and make amends? I have not. Well, generally, no, that doesn't happen, because you got to realize the person that they cheated on you with was not told the reality. They were told this whole other thing, so they're not operating from facts. And it's just difficult. Normal, decent people, every normal, decent person thinks that they would be able to spot a pathological liar or dangerous and deadly person coming. And they can't, unless you have to almost kind of go through this stuff in order to be able to be aware of it. So if if this person's coming on so strong, coming off like a soulmate and like, Prince Charming and all of these things, that's intoxicating. I think we can all agree with that. It's so intense to feel like you've met your soulmate, right? And so it's really difficult to believe when somebody starts telling you how problematic this person is and that they're a pathological liar. It's just difficult for a normal, decent person to even begin to wrap their mind around that. So if they've been fed a bunch of lies about you, they don't think that they've done anything wrong. They don't see that you're the victim in any of this. Okay, Slavic Princess says, Dana, my subconscious mind isn't used to self-loving practices. It's used to acknowledgement of decades of codependent behaviors. Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Yes, so this period where you are, it's basically this deprogramming and then reprogramming. It's I would imagine, very similar to what people who leave a cult go through. There's that deprogramming period, and then there's kind of this reinstallation of updated software. That's so much of what we're all going through. It's a very confusing, kind of disjointed time in a person's life, but I think there's so much beauty in that. Because when your world is just rocked at such a level like that, to where everything that you've known to be true is just, decimated. It's just like this giant bomb goes off in your life. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about that, but like the beauty in that is that now when all of that programming has just been blown apart and you're standing there and you're kind of looking around at the rubble that is your life, you can now start consciously moving forward and choosing the pieces of that you're going to rebuild with. That is, I can't even begin to express to you like how powerful that truly is. And you're in that process right now. And it happens, this rebuilding process happens in both big and small ways, every single moment of every single day. It's choosing what you want in your life. It's choosing what you don't want in your life. It's, just all kinds of decisions. It's questioning toxic programming, dysfunctional programming. It's really working towards replacing it with something healthier. It's realizing, oh my gosh, the old me used to go about things, was really into people pleasing, for example. The new me is realizing that my voice matters and that it's important that I'm assertive, and it's healthy to say yes when I mean yes and no when I mean no. And that I don't need to twist myself into an emotional pretzel to accommodate all of these other people when this whole situation is toxic and not something I want to be a part of. And so working towards that of untangling all of that dysfunctional programming, I mean, these affirmations can really, really help with that. I think that was one of the most important things that I did in my healing process. And I had 2 sets, and they were index cards. I had a set that I kept by my bed, and I had a set that I kept in my purse. And I, man, just was writing down every single affirmation that I wanted to believe. I am worthy. I am, there is a lot that is right about me. I am a good friend. I am worth loving. There was just so many. The best revenge was a good life I guess I had a mix of mantras and affirmations, things like that, I would just feed my brain. I would go through those cards, dozens of times a day, especially in the beginning. It helped me to stay on track. And this was what I was going to steer into. And a lot of those affirmations, especially, were things I didn't believe about myself at that time. But over time, I really did. I think the power with affirmations is when you're reading them, it's not just simply reading them, it's truly feeling them, allowing. So Kiara was talking earlier about finding these moments of stillness in your life and being present in the moment. That might be a really great way to do that in like a very loving, self-compassionate way, is to take time doing some affirmations, allowing yourself to be fully present with that and just letting it sink in. And this is another thing Tony Robbins talks about is, changing. I talked earlier about changing. The fastest way to change your life is to raise your standards. And he had said, the beliefs, basically our beliefs are thoughts that we just keep thinking. And so if we want to change our beliefs, then we have to just change our thoughts. And the reason that thoughts become beliefs is because we start finding references that back up that thinking. So if we're telling ourselves at a subconscious level, I am not lovable, I am not worthy, I am not whatever we're telling ourselves, we're also finding references that support that. I am not lovable because, my parents emotionally abandoned me, or because whatever it might be, because I've been discarded. I've had a string of failed relationships because I need to lose weight, because I need to, whatever it is. These are all of the reasons. It's interesting when you can start following kind of the logic behind your beliefs of, why am I thinking these thoughts? Why am I thinking these disempowering thoughts? And then it's so powerful to realize, okay, you can shift this pretty quickly. So if you start thinking, if you want to think, I matter. I am lovable. There's a lot of things that are right about me. To start getting different references that support that. So for example, let's say you start off with, there are a lot of things that are right about me. And you make that an affirmation. Then you start thinking about, okay, what is right about you? Getting some better references. Maybe you think you have a pretty good sense of humor, that you really care about animals, that you are a good friend, that you know, what is right about you, and just start as many things as that you can kind of gather all of that up. And these are going to be the references for this new empowering belief that there's a lot right about you. So I would be curious to know, Slavic Princess, if you do end up trying something like that, what your experience is. Like, how does that work for you to sit in that, and Kiara too, to sit in stillness like that with just some self-compassion and feeding your brain these different empowering messages. Okay, let's see here. Slavic Princess says, seriously, everyone that has ever engaged in this forum are the most wonderful people outside of family that I have ever interacted with. All of you are dearly loved. Yeah, I agree. I think we have a pretty awesome group of people here. And it's nice to, every now and again, we've got some, you know, troublemakers, but for the most part, it's really nice to see people connect from all over the world and that just are able to give each other that empathy and compassion. It's just a really beautiful thing to see. So I agree with you 100% on that. Let's see. Rob says, Dana, would you describe affirmation as an emotion? No, I would describe, in terms of what I was talking about, like doing affirmations, as something that's more of an activity or an action, whereas emotion is not an action, it's a feeling. So different, but I think affirmations can definitely spark a lot of emotions within a person. So I think that if we're really truly doing them right, then it brings up a lot of emotion within us. I shouldn't even say doing them right, because I think there's just a learning curve to everything. I think if we're getting kind of squeezing as much as we can out of affirmations, that's when we really make this deep emotional connection. I did affirmations for years and vision boards and all kinds of stuff, and it never went anywhere. Like, it never resonated with me. It was cool and it was interesting and rewarding in the moment, but it didn't sink in at a deeper level. And it wasn't until, you know, after all of this that, and I would say even after that, when just really truly letting yourself feel those emotions of how that truly feels, to feel like you matter, and these are the things about you that are right with you, to fully feel that at such a deep level that it almost brings tears to your eyes. It's powerful. It's just really powerful. Same thing with, you know, doing the gratitude practices. Before, when I would do gratitude, it was more of, I would just kind of rattle off a list. Like, oh, I'm really grateful for clear skies. I'm really grateful for the quality people I do have in my life. I'm really grateful that I have food in my refrigerator and that I can take a hot shower and that I have money in the bank. Like I'm thankful and grateful. What radically changed my life was when I slowed things down and truly felt that deep, deep appreciation of, oh my God, that I am so outrageously fortunate. What a gift to have hot, clean water. There's so many people in the world that don't have that. Like that truly is just such a gift. And to have food in the refrigerator. Wow. Wow. You know, just deep appreciation for the little things. And I think that when we're going through trauma, it can be really difficult because it can be all consuming, and it takes all of our focus away from everything else, and we're just solely focused on our pain. But if we can take some time and start focusing on the things that are good and right with our life and with ourselves, it brings a lot of light to all of the darkness that's there. Huge. Oh, good. Grace says, Dana, your video with Angie this week was very helpful, full of helpful descriptions and scenarios to relate to. So thank you both. Well, good. I'm glad. I really enjoyed. I always enjoy our live streams. I really enjoy talking with her. But yeah, we had a lot of really great questions, and I enjoyed it too this week. So thank you for that. Lori says, I'm going to bed early. # self-care. Take care. I love this learning session. Thank you, and God bless you all. Well, good night, Lori. Get some sleep, and we hope you have a good rest of your week. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Gone with Kale says, yes, hot water in a toilet. Yes, yeah. I mean, there's seriously so many things, like being thankful for the health that we do have. And so often we're focused on the health that we don't have, or frustration with getting older, or kind of focus. It's just so easy to focus on everything that's not right. And yeah, so many things to really, truly be thankful for. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, right. Truth Seeker says, if all empaths become educated to this stuff, oh man, will things get interesting. Yep, I agree. I agree completely. Well, it would be an absolute game changer. I think if narcissists, if manipulators in general ever stand a chance of changing, it would mainly be because the rest of the world wouldn't put up with it. If everybody else stopped enabling their behavior, stopped tolerating their behavior, saw it for what it is, it couldn't exist. It only works because people are in the dark with it. So yeah, self-awareness, man, it's where it's at. It's just finding your way back to yourself is what it is. It truly, truly is. Because I think at the core of everybody, you know, like you never lose that. Like you always know what is problematic. It's just learning to tune in to that inner voice, but that inner voice is always there. So it's, I guess maybe that can be kind of reassuring for some people that might feel like, I can't trust myself. I feel broken. I don't know which end is up, and which is also very normal to kind of go through that process when you're trying to tune in to your inner voice. But all of this, because it takes a while to kind of get your sea legs with all of this stuff, and it can feel like, oh, what if I'm setting boundaries that are too rigid, and what if my boundaries are too loose, and what if I feel like something's off, but what if it's because there's something off within me and I'm just perceiving this person incorrectly? And what if, and what if, and what if? And it's a lot of trial and error. And again, this is why I recommend meetup groups. It's just a great way to start practicing these skills. Agata says, vision boards are all about evoking emotion to pull you into action to achieve the goal. Yes, I agree. I guess I just was missing that piece of the puzzle for a long time. And I was putting up, oh, are you going to bed? She's going to bed. Agata, thank you for the live stream donation. And also says, all I want for Christmas for everyone is a full set of healthy, nourishing, empowering, and highly functional boundaries. Good night, everyone. So good night, and I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. So yeah, the vision board thing, it's that in itself is a very interesting process. And that actually might be, actually, I think this will be something that we end up doing another live stream on, like December 30th or December 31st is. So actually, let me think about that some more, about how we can organize this. But I think that's going to be something that we do live, so we can go through kind of what it looks like and how you make one and the kind of the thought process behind it. Because a lot of people, myself included, when they start doing a vision board, they start off by putting up, finding images and words that resonate with you. And it might be, and here's the thing, it's so you can learn so much about yourself by doing this. Because I think what a lot of people tend to do is they find things that they feel like they should want. Like, oh, I really should want to go see the Eiffel Tower. So I'll put that on there. And I guess that, I really want to travel, and it'd be cool to go to Egypt. And, I really want to get I don't know, PhD in neuroscience. And, oh, I really want to do this. And I really want like a brand new Mercedes and, this, that, and the other thing. But if you can start focusing on the emotion that's deeper, because here's the thing, it's never about the stuff. It never, ever is. And it's always about the emotion that we think those things will give to us, that we'll be able to tap into. So it's not about going to Egypt or going to the Eiffel Tower. It's about the emotion that we think that experience would give us. It would be in a sense of adventure. It would be a sense of freedom. It would be a sense of like exploration, these kinds of things. If we put, a really high-end new car on the board, it's how we think that car would make us feel. Or it's interesting when you start realizing that it's not about the stuff, it's about the emotions. It's about how that stuff you think would make you feel. It just takes it to a totally different level. So then it's like, okay, maybe if I'm trying to find a sense of adventure or a sense of fun or these kinds of things, I can tap into that now. Like, I don't need to go to Paris or to Egypt to get that. I can start by exploring my own city and, doing something new, or going to a museum, or even going to a different restaurant that you've never been to before. Like, there's all of these different things that we can start doing in small ways that really kind of scratch that itch. And it's amazing once we start tapping into those emotions in small ways, I don't know, it just develops a whole different level of insight. It's interesting. Oh, I like that. EXO says, my vision board needs hugs from people and snuggles with animals. Oh, I like that. Let me scroll up here. Oh, I love that. Missouri Cowboy says, I have a beautiful picture of a 90-plus-year-old man, very attractive and healthy looking. He is standing surrounded by his herd of excellent goats. It inspires the feeling of real hope and what can be. I think you touch on a really great point of, and kind of shattering these glass ceilings and getting rid of limiting beliefs. Because we all have them. We all have this idea of what, your example of what a 90-year-old should look like and act like, and what they should be doing with their time. And what can be so telling about that is if that's our vision of what a 90-year-old is supposed to be like, odds are we're going to start steering into that and we're going to become that. So if we start, one of the books that I wanted to write a while ago was something along the lines of like, yes, you can. And then compiling these different stories of people of all different ages to show like what they've been able to do. Because the same thing goes for really young people, children that have written books at the age of 10 that have now published them on Amazon, or started their own business at the age of 12, or it's just, we tend to think, oh, this has to be a certain way. Like, oh, you can't write a book until you're at least 25. Or you can't start a business until you have a business degree, or until you're at least 21. And it's cool to see people that are really shattering these ideas of what we think is possible. Let's see, Vera Wang didn't start designing her first dress until she was 40. And who's it? Helga Crooks became a mountain climber. I want to say, in her 70s or 80s. She's, I think, one of the oldest people to climb, I want to say it's Mount Everest. I'd have to go look up her story again. It was really, really inspiring. People that have done all kinds, who was it? People that didn't start painting until they were in their 70s and have produced a tremendous volume of work. It's just so cool to read. Picasso, I read the other day that in his lifetime, he produced, I think it said, over 50,000 works of art. I had no idea he was that prolific. Now, granted, some of them were more basic than others, but just realizing I would have never thought that a person could even be done. And you start kind of shattering these different beliefs about what you think can be done. And it's a total game changer. I remember when I was in nursing school, one of the things that we had to do is we had clinicals. And so we would go around and, practice different nursing skills, and we would do patient histories on people. And I had we were at a senior citizen center. The guy he was probably in his late 70s, early 80s, and he had no health issues. And I had never come across a person like that. He didn't even wear glasses or contacts. His vision was fine. He walked fine. He, didn't have diabetes, didn't have high cholesterol, wasn't on any medication. He was the picture of health. And I'm sure I just had this stunned look on my face because we just never saw that. And then it kind of made me realize just because you're a certain age doesn't mean anything. Yeah, so much of that is we define what's possible for us. I love that. Natalie says, one of my friends lost everything at 55 and started over to become a multi-millionaire. It's never too late for anything. Yes, it's just so cool. Okay, let's see. Let's scroll up here. Oh my goodness. Ileana says the 70-year-old woman who swam from Cuba to Florida. And there's a lot of people at all different ages that are doing just amazing things. Okay, let's see. Chantel says, why is the denial so strong? I realized my relationship was abusive because someone energetically, quote unquote, read it. I had to re-listen to what was said continuously to stop myself from obsessing over it. Well, whenever we deny something, it's because it's a painful situation. So when we're denying reality, it's because we don't want to see it. And the higher the emotional investment we have in a situation being something other than it is, the more denial that we're going to experience. And this is why, I mean, this is why you see, people supporting murderers, and we've got parents of murderers that are oftentimes supporting them. They didn't do it, they couldn't have done it, I support them, even though they were on camera and they have DNA evidence and all of this stuff. They just refuse to believe it because it's too painful for them to actually acknowledge that my child did this. People stay in all kinds of problematic situations, all kinds, because it's painful. It's painful to be in reality. It's so interesting because we all, I think, slip into denial at different points in our life for different reasons. It's really common. I know for me, here's an example. I put on probably about, I don't know, 20 pounds or so since I started my YouTube channel. And it happened really quickly. Within that first year, I think I was just stress eating and emotionally eating and not aware that I was doing it. And it was the weirdest thing because, here you are looking in the mirror and, you've got evidence, like your clothes don't fit, right? And it's amazing how we just continued not seeing that I'm gaining weight. I remember thinking my clothes must have shrunk in the dryer. It did not register that I had gained weight. And I think in part it was because I didn't feel that I was eating any more than I normally had, but I had to have, because that's how weight gain works. But it just wasn't registering. So it's weird. It's weird. We can look in the mirror and still continue to lie to ourselves about things. If you ever watch those shows like My 600-Pound Life or whatever, and people talk about gaining weight, or even anorexics, like people that are losing weight, they don't see, it's a kind of this body dysmorphia thing. Like they just don't see their bodies accurately. Our brain is such a powerful organ. It's able to change reality at such a level that's almost impressive. I agree. JB says, when we are shocked about something bad someone did, we tend to want to go back to how things were before and seek safety. Please don't hate on Chris Watts' parents. They'll come around eventually. I agree. I hope that they do. The more I hear about that case, the more disturbing his whole family situation is. But at the same time, even if let's just take away all of the kind of unsettling dynamics that were there, I can't imagine how hard, if I found out that my brother did something horrific like that, I would have a really hard time accepting that, because it's just not the person that I know. So I get why parents, especially if they don't see it in their child, there's no signs, there's child's, easygoing, pretty likable, there's just no real signs of aggression. That behavior would come so out of the blue. I get it. Like, okay, well, what happened? What happened to make them do this? Because that's not them. It's hard. It's hard. So the whole situation is just tragic. Okay, let's see. Fallon says, hi, Dana. I'm always happy to catch the live stream in time. I really need it this week. Well, we are glad you are here then. I just realized I hadn't taken my tea bag out. I'm like, man, this tea is really strong. Well, it's been steeping for 2 hours now. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. And that's so true. JB says, you never know how you will act when you're in shock. Yep, absolutely. And that's another thing, how we think we would respond or react is oftentimes very different than how we actually do. Uh, when we had the house fire, how I would have thought I would have reacted during that was very different than how I actually did. And I was kind of that stereotypical hysterical person that they were having to keep out of the house. I kept trying to go back in to get the cats. And thankfully the cats are fine, but you're just not thinking straight. It just doesn't compute. And you're just thinking, I've got to get those cats out of there. And the fire chief at one point, he was like, ma'am, you need to go stand across the street, and had me go stand over there because I was a wreck. It's really wild. Or back, when 911, here's probably a better example. When 911 first became a thing, it used to be called 911. And they have these commercials out, if you need help or you're in trouble, call 911. And then they found out that when people were panicking, if somebody broke into their house, if somebody was choking, these kinds of things, they were struggling to find the 11 button on their phone. That's how scrambled our thinking can become. And so that's why they changed it to 911, because you just got to keep it simple, because when people are panicking, they're not able, they just need it chunked down in as simple of a format as humanly possible. And yeah, with Chris Watts's family and everybody, that's so much to process that I would imagine that would take years, if not decades, to really work through. Interested, you bring up a good point. Interested says, my mom dislocated her shoulder this weekend and I had to react quickly and take her to the ER. It actually helped me focus on something other than my own anxiety. Thankfully, she is fine now. I'm really glad that your mom is okay. That had to have been scary for both of you. But I think you bring up a good point of one thing that can help us to step out of our own pain is to go help somebody else. It's amazing the power in that. Volunteering for people that are less fortunate. My goodness, there's so many things. Even writing letters to different people that might just be struggling, and offering them words of support. Offering support if you're in support groups, offering other people support. But I think the volunteering one can be really, really helpful. It can help kind of regain some perspective, and it helps to realize like we're not alone in this pain, that so much of this pain is just part of the human experience, and it can make us more compassionate for other people, and just realizing that so much of this is stuff we just have to, it's just part of life, and we go through it, and everybody's got something. Up yours, Narc says, Dana, what if of an antisocial personality disordered family member that committed a crime? If you report and the police don't do anything, then they can come for you. What do you do? Do you mean that the family member could come for you? If so, I would say I would call the police and file an anonymous report. This is assuming that there's other, that would work. I don't know the crime. I don't know the situation, but you can always talk to the police anonymously and let them know, like, I'm really scared. This person committed this kind of a crime and I just want to stay out of it, but I want, this to be investigated. Fallon says, Dana, I've been feeling a need to check on my ex-narcissist of 1 year. I have been no contact for 5 months, but I'm still always missing him and thinking about the ways he's affected my everyday life now. Help. Okay, I think first and foremost, when we find ourselves missing someone, I think more so in a romantic relationship, but it could be any relationship. If somebody is really on your mind, and especially if they're toxic and problematic and you're like, I know I can't go back to this, but there's a part of me that really misses them. It's not necessarily them that you're missing. It's generally there was some part of that connection that you're missing. So maybe you missed a sense of humor, or maybe you missed that sense of connection or feeling significant to somebody else, or having things to do. It's generally something deeper. It's not that person. Do you see what I'm saying? So the cool thing with that is when you can dig a little bit deeper and be like, you know what, actually, I think I'm having dreams about this person. I'm thinking about this person a lot. It's because I really miss that we used to go camping all the time, or that we, um, you know, they had a really great sense of humor. And so you realize, okay, I'm really missing this in my life. When you have that realization of this is what I'm missing in my life, the cool thing is then you can start working towards getting those needs met in healthier ways. So finding other people to go camping with, meeting some new people that you do have more of a connection with, like a sense of humor, these kinds of things. So it can offer these emotions, even though they're incredibly painful and uncomfortable, can offer a tremendous amount of insight and feedback as far as what's next, like what you need to work on in your life at this stage. Okay, let's see here. Slavic Princess says, yes, there is a blessing in the lesson. Yep, there is. We can definitely squeeze out as many lessons as we possibly can from everything. And I think oftentimes the more painful a situation is, the more lessons that we can squeeze out from it. It's hard to, I think, sometimes have that mindset when we're in the thick of it, because there's so much pain. But when that pain starts to subside, realizing that you can really squeeze out a lot from this. Phil says, Dana, I finally got evidence proving my family conspired to steal my kid, which is before the courts. How does one handle this reality? My family betrayed and abandoned me. Last month, it almost cost me my life. My friends came to my aid. Well, I can imagine that would be incredibly painful. I think you handle that reality a day at a time, moment by moment. And it's just this realization of, okay, now I realize that these people are not emotionally safe, and I need to kind of do some things different. So I need to find some people that are in my corner and that do support me, and uh, surround yourself with people that have your best interest and the best interest of your child in mind. And as far as it almost costing your life, if you're talking like suicide wise, I would just encourage you, and anybody that's feeling suicidal, to really take the option of suicide off of the table. Just it helps so much to just do that, to just take it off of the table. That way you're not kind of walking that line. You're not flirting with the idea. You're not tempted by it. It's not within the range of possibility. It's just off the table. And so then it kind of helps your brain to focus on, okay, then how am I going to handle this? If the suicide's not an option, then what is an option? And it's just moving forward bit by bit, day by day, and really handling that pain in a different way. If you are still feeling suicidal, please Google. There's suicide hotline numbers. There's numbers in the United States. There's numbers in the UK and all over. So most of them are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's a good resource if you're feeling low. Fallon says, I'm really missing my feeling of significance and the go with the flow attitude. I hope I can get it back, but I know I can't ever go back to that carefree innocence. And real quick, thank you, Shay, for the live stream donation. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Well, okay, so Fallon, the carefree innocence. Yes, I think that's one of the many things that we have to grieve after these types of situations. It's that innocence and that kind of naivete about people and in the world. And it truly is something that we have to grieve. But I think it's also possible to realize that you can still have a more, you can still have that kind of free-spirited attitude, but in a more kind of moderate, aware way. So, it is possible. I mean, you can still be spontaneous, you can still have fun, you can still do all of these things, but it's just in a much more aware, situationally aware kind of a way. And that is, it's so empowering when you have that, because then you fully know, like, I can keep myself safe. I know when something feels off, I know how to respond to it. You're just so much more aware and in reality and able to respond effectively, and the decisions that you make, the relationship that you have with yourself, your level of self-awareness, all of that is just greatly enhanced. So yes, while we're on one hand, we're mourning the loss of certain things about our personality, about ourselves, about our life, there's also a lot that we can, and again, this comes with time. I don't mean to be insensitive, because I know a lot of people are fresh out and it's just raw. It's just raw emotions and pain. But on one hand, we're grieving the loss of something, but on the other hand, I think it can help to realize that there's a lot we can look forward to as well. There's a lot of personal growth that's going to come. Yes, things are going to change, because healing and growth, it's always about moving forward. It's never about going back to the way we were. And I think just knowing that can set a lot of people free, because people tend to walk around feeling broken because they aren't who they used to be. And that's not a good measuring stick, because life never ever works like that. Every event that happens, it's always pushing you forward. So, but now that you're aware of, okay, these are some of the feelings that maybe were really kind of brought up in that relationship, that's some stuff that you can work towards doing now. Of, okay, I really miss that feeling of feeling significant to somebody. Okay, this is telling me. So in a healthier way, now I really would benefit from seeking out spending quality time with quality people. That's the healthier side of that. And once you start channeling that energy into something that's more nourishing for you, a lot of the pull to him is going to just dissolve, because it's not him. It's these different things that he represented to you. Up Yours Narc says, okay, if I report this crime anonymously, they will know it's me. It's the epitome of the double bind. They need to pay for what they did. No one thought to question this person. They're the pillar of the community. Well, I would also ask, or kind of think about, what kind of evidence is there? So is there enough evidence able to be found at this point where the police could actually pursue an investigation? I think that's the hard thing when this kind of stuff, the police are looking at the wrong person, or there's not enough evidence out there. It's really hard for people to get justice. And the longer time goes by, the harder it is to actually get evidence for this kind of stuff. So that might be some other things to consider. I'm sorry. I know that's got to be really frustrating to feel like if I say anything, then I'm going to be unsafe. I guess I would just kind of weigh it out. Like, what do you think the person would do? Risk versus reward. What would they do to you if you were to tell? If you were to tell, what are the odds that they would actually be convicted? Is it going to be a he said, she said kind of a thing? Because if that's the case and it's putting you at great risk, I for sure wouldn't say anything. But if there's some sort of evidence there that they could, be found guilty and potentially could go away for a long time where you're not at risk, that's another matter. And it would also be okay, because it's these situations, if you do say something and it does put you in potential harm's way and they get found not guilty, or they're only in prison for a couple years, it would be wise to have some sort of plan. Then what? Because if they go to jail, they're going to be stewing about it. And if they know it's you, they're really going to be stewing about it. So it would be like, okay, then you probably would need to move if they're dangerous or destructive. So all things to consider. I'm a big fan of doing the right thing, but I think it just goes back to really putting your safety and sanity as a top priority. And kind of, is this person a danger to society? Are they, hurting other people? And what kind of proof is there? Okay, let's see here. Oh, well, good. Fallon says, I really appreciate you answering my questions tonight. I feel like you're speaking straight to the heart. Well, good deal. I'm glad. And I hope that was able to kind of give you some clarity or validation of some sort. I think, you're not the only, you're not alone in struggling with that. I think a lot of people do. And it's that pull of, it just sends a person back to square one. It's really difficult. I was talking to a friend today about very much the same thing. He was looking up, he didn't tell me this until today. He had looked up his ex's Facebook profile. They'd been broken up for several years, and he found out that she was married, and he was devastated. And so we were talking about it, and it turned out, because he had been missing her, and they'd been broken up for years. He goes to Facebook page, sees this, just gets devastated and really bummed out, and it's kind of spiraled him to this really low, dark place of, did I let a good thing go? Like, she got married, now she's living happily ever after, I'm still single. What does that say about me? Am I being too fault finding? Am I being too picky? Kind of what's wrong with me, kind of a thing. And so I was telling him pretty much the same thing. Like, it's not her, it's the emotions that you felt with her. Like, that's the stuff that you miss. And I don't know, can be a game changer when we look at it from that angle. Because for him, it was that sense of connection. He dated probably, I don't even know, half a dozen women since her, but none that he'd ever really felt that connection with. But she was toxic, and that relationship needed to end, and he knew it needed to end. He was the one that finally broke up with her. But it was most likely, it was that level of intensity and that kind of false soulmate connection that a lot of toxic people tend to have or tend to create. It was the feeling of significance and feeling of that deep connection with another person. Excuse me. Oh, okay, let's see here. Oh, good. Fallon says, I am very young coming out of this, so I'm trying to stay thankful for the wisdom I gained as well. I really want to work in more spontaneity and humor in my life. My soul needs it. I think those are some fantastic goals. Fantastic goals. Okay, hold on. All right, some stuff down here. Sorry, taking random notes throughout the chat. Let's see. Yes, Rob says it's the way of life. We can't return to being a fetus or childhood as we age, but we can look forward to embracing a new future and self-identities. Yes, absolutely. And we can create that new empowering future at any age. There's so much that is possible. Like Missouri Cowboy was saying, that seeing this picture of this 90-plus-year-old man who was in great health and great shape, and he's surrounded by all these goats and just had a really enjoyable life. And there's a lot that we have control over, and that we can steer into, and bringing that sense of joy and fulfillment into our life at any age. Oh, thank you, Jamie, for the live stream donation, who says, I look so forward to these live streams and all of your videos, Dana. I so appreciate you. Your life story involving these toxic people is also incredibly similar to mine. So thank you. Well, thank you so much for the donation and for just the kind words and the support. I really appreciate it. It's so interesting, isn't it? When we hear the stories of other people, and you're like, boy, we're just telling different versions of the same story. It's just so wild how that happens. But I think it's so important because it can be so validating, because this kind of stuff can really make it seem like, oh, it's just me, and it's not. It's happens, unfortunately, to way too many people. Let's see. The Wombat says, just saw you were live. I truly appreciate you sharing your experiences with so many. Well, thank you and welcome. Let's see here. Let me scroll up and find some questions here. Anonymous Healer, great question, says, I've been working hard to be mindful and positive, but I am exhausted, unmotivated, numb, despairing, and in great psychological pain. How can I tell if it's depression or the complex PTSD? Well, it could be both. And I think depression tends to go hand in hand with PTSD of any kind. So generally speaking, all of this, everything that you're describing are major signs of major depression. Psychological pain component tends to speak more to like the PTSD of it all, but you might, I guess, long story short, I would encourage you to set up an appointment with either a psychiatrist or psychiatric nurse practitioner, somebody who can potentially help with this stuff with medication. Because if it is a major depression, medication can help with that. And really, man, I tell you, depression is one of those things. Especially if a person's had a history of it, like if you've experienced this before, it's really difficult to have the needle move in therapy to actually make forward momentum when there's so much depression going on, because for all the reasons that you mentioned, it's like pushing a big boulder up a hill, and it doesn't have to be that way. So really getting on the right medication for depression, if that's what you and your doctor agree on, can just be an absolute game changer. So that would be something that I would encourage. If you speak to either I would probably, now that I'm saying all this out loud, I would encourage you to go to a psychiatrist, because they're also, or a psychiatric nurse practitioner, either one, not a family doctor. So, and not a therapist, because a therapist can't prescribe medication. And a family doctor isn't going to have the skill set to diagnose post-traumatic stress disorder. So a psychiatrist can prescribe medication. If you end up in, so can a psychiatric nurse practitioner. But so if you go in, they'll normally do a questionnaire with you. So if you say, I can't tell, something's really wrong, I can't handle feeling this way anymore, I can't tell if it's depression or if it's PTSD. Oftentimes they have different inventories. It's like a questionnaire. I think there's, 10, 20 questions on them that they can do a screening and kind of see where on the scale are you for these things. But like I said, it's very common. There's a chance that you really could have both. Those things tend to go hand in hand. But you'll have more luck, or not luck, more success with addressing the PTSD if you can get those depression symptoms managed. Does that make sense? Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Fallon says, one thing I've been holding on to, the last night we spent together, he put my hand on his chest and said, we will always be together, even though he didn't want to continue our relationship. Can anybody explain or relate? And Ty says, yes, I can relate. Yes, and I can relate as well. It's these people just, it's like life is a movie for them. It's just the most bizarre thing. They just say things that sound so good in the moment. It says this mix of impulsivity and selfishness. And oftentimes they get off on bringing people up to these really high highs and then dropping them to really low lows. That can be a big part. It's just sadistic sometimes. Like they just really enjoy inflicting the most amount of pain on somebody, because I think in their sick mind, it makes them feel significant. She must really, or he must really care about me, because look at how much they suffer. Look at what I can do, kind of a thing. It's just, and it's just bizarre. I mean, if you're familiar at all with my story, thank you, Up Yours Narc, for the live stream donation. It says, thank you so much for all your help. Well, I'm glad to be able to do this. In my situation with Steve, talk about a trip to crazy town. His behavior on the outside looking in, you would think this man is committed and sincere and very much in love with this woman. That's what you would think from the outside looking in. And it was really wild to realize the level of destruction that he even caused in his own life, knowing that none of this was, that it was all temporary. It's so illogical. It does not even remotely make sense. I mean, he filed papers to divorce his wife. Because when we had first got together, he was saying, oh, she's manipulative, she's a liar, she's all of these terrible things. And we're under the same roof, but we're like friends, it's okay. I haven't had a reason to actually file and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, if we're going to date, you need to move out and file papers. Like, I'm not getting involved with a married man. And that weekend he did. And so then it was this series of, I had said, hey, I'm moving to Michigan. So and I also had said, if you're going to divorce your wife, definitely don't do it because of me. Like, do it because you want to be divorced from your wife, because in part I'm moving to Michigan. And also in part, I don't want to be the reason that your marriage falls apart if there's anything there. And he's like, oh, no, it's been over for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And moves to Michigan with me, quits his job, gives away his dog, sells his car, cashes in his retirement, like cashes everything out, right? Moves to Michigan with me. The whole time he's still talking to his wife and saying, giving her this story that things were bad between them. He couldn't handle it anymore. He needed a break, blah, blah. She didn't know anything about me, and moves 26 hours away to Michigan. We were planning on buying a house together. And at the last minute, we even signed a contract. And I was like, you know what? I just don't have peace about this. And we backed out. Thankfully, because I would have been really up a creek because I couldn't afford that mortgage all on my own. I mean, it was just wild. And he had no intentions. He had every intention of going back to his wife. He was feeding her, stringing her along, telling me everything. And I thought things were great between us. The day or two before he left, we were out on, our neighbors had a boat, and we were out on the lake and having a great time. And, it was nothing. And the only issue we had was he was a Jehovah's Witness, and he hadn't told me that before. And that was a deal breaker for me. And so we were trying to kind of work through that. But anyways, so I had said, we'd kind of gotten to the point where I was like, okay, this might be a deal breaker. And I had said, if you feel that you need to go back, then please all I ask is that you let me know, because I need to make some arrangements. We have an apartment, there's things I have to get in order. Oh, yes, I would never do this to you, blah, blah. I love you, blah, blah. We plan to get married, girl, just on and on, just crazy. And so then, fast forward like a day or 2 days, in the middle of the night, he gets this phone call, tells me it's his son, who none of it made sense. Tells me it was his adult son who, he missed him. He's like, I need to go back. I just can't be here, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm leaving tomorrow. And I was shocked. And you're sticking me with all of the rent. And I had bought him a truck like a week or so prior to that. I'm like, how are you going to pay me back? Because you need to pay me back for that. And it was just so incredibly stressful. And then fast forward, his wife ends up calling me. It just kept getting crazier and crazier. After he left, he had called his wife, told her where he was, that he'd upped and left her for me, but that he was an alcoholic, and that he was addicted to Adderall or some other drugs or something. And so he needed to check himself into rehab, and she paid for it. So she paid for rehab for, 2 weeks or so. He was there. And of course he made himself the victim. I never saw a drug problem or an alcohol problem from him. So that was shocking to me, but it wasn't real. It was all about blaming his behavior on substances. Right. And then, so while he was in there, his wife had his phone. That's how she got my number, called me. Of course, she was livid. I was confused and horrified. We get to talking and then start, of course, getting to the bottom of it. We're both horrified. He gets out of rehab. We start now there's the three of us. He doesn't realize that his wife and I are talking now. And so he's texting her, messaging her one thing, messaging me something else. He was trying to get me to move back to where we were from, under this guise of my life is with you. You are my world. Home is wherever you are, blah, 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 telling me everything a woman would ever want to hear. And had I not been talking to his wife, there's a very solid chance I would have moved back. It was crazy. And none of it was real. It was all just this crazy world of control in his mind. So yeah, like they do a lot of things that don't make sense. It's even if it's hurts them, like he screwed himself over in so many ways with that, and just didn't, it's just all about winning for them. It's all about getting what they want. And they just don't even care how much destruction they cause for somebody else or for themselves. It's just absolutely wild. Fallon says, yes. And now he's hugely into yoga and only posts pictures of himself doing yoga poses because he's so aware now. Yes. And that's really wild when you, you see like really manipulative people in different situations like that. Like they're really, supposedly spiritually aware, or it's weird when you see a manipulator. It was strange to me when I came across a guy who was a narcissist and he was vegan. That just didn't compute to me. He was also really big into philosophy and like logic and critical thinking, and yet he could not see how erratic and illogical his own behavior was. It was so bizarre. I just did not understand how that all fit together in one package. It was just very strange. Or when you find, a person that's really sadistic and destructive, who's big into the whole kind of, I don't know, religion or spirituality. It's just like, how do you do this day in and day out? And yet there's still no self-awareness of what you're doing is a problem. Like how does that work? It's strange. Anonymous Healer is talking to Postmodern and says, so if you were married to him and he decides he wants to cheat, he could tell himself he didn't love you anymore and cheat. Yeah, that's how that oftentimes goes. Or it's they fake a fight, or they provoke a fight. I can't handle this anymore. Or they just up and leave with some sort of crazy story like Steve did to his wife. It was totally out of the blue, all of a sudden she's like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that we had so many problems. And how come you hadn't talked to me about it before? And I want to resolve things. And it's just lie after lie after lie. And then him telling her, oh, I didn't feel comfortable telling you the truth. I just didn't know how to, basically, I didn't know how to communicate with you. I didn't know how to tell you this. And then of course, before she contacted me, here she is working overtime, trying to figure out, well, how did our communication get so off the rails? And how can I fix things? And wanting to, couples counseling and wanting to, begging him, like, what did I do wrong? I want to make it work. I want to fix this. And, and it had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with just him wanting to have an affair. Ooh, that's a good question. Siddharth says, hey, Dana, I'm a student and I have an exam in 5 months' time, which requires rigorous preparation. Can you give me advice on how I can optimize my focus amidst my healing journey? That is a good one. I would say, I think in part it's going to be realizing that your brain is functioning very differently right now, and working within the parameters of what is, not what you want it to be, but what actually is. So you'll have to do some experimenting with this, but I would say I would start with doing kind of these different little sprints. So study sprints. So let's say, for example, you have, I don't know, 100 hours worth of studying to do for this really big exam. If you can break it down into, I don't know how many, 30 days times 5, there's 150. Is that right? Yeah, 150 days from now, 5 months, 30 days in a month, 5 months, right? 150 days time. Let's say for easy math, you have 150 hours worth of studying to do. So then, okay, I need to study for an hour a day. And you have a hard time focusing for an hour a day, and breaking that down into, uh, you know, 15-minute segments. So maybe you do 15 minutes of intensive studying, and then you take a break for however long, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. You come back, you do another 15 minutes. And then you do maybe 2 15-minute sessions in the evening. And you just do this every day. So you're just breaking it down in chunks, because my guess is that you'll find that it's easier for you to focus in short bursts, because and you can set a timer. This is something I still do when I write. I try to make it into a game, and it's really enjoyable. And I do this not so much because of like PTSD things. It's more of attention issues and it's hard. It's just hard to focus on something for hours on end, So it does help to do. There's this whole technique out there called the Pomodoro method, if you're familiar with that. And basically it's shown that people do better in these like micro bursts of time. So it might be, 15-minute focus, and then 5 or 10-minute break, and then 15 minutes of focus in doing this. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm good, I can keep going, to really make it a point to just take these scheduled breaks, because it allows your brain to just unwind and unplug, and it keeps your brain fresher longer. So I don't know. I'll be curious. Let me know. Let me know what you do end up trying and what works for you. Okay, let's see here. Fallon says, I wonder if artists are more likely to be narcissists. I'm an artist as well, though, so maybe it's just highly emotional people. Yeah, I think highly creative people, there's that line of kind of between genius and madness. And when a person is actively creative on a regular basis, I think we all tend to kind of walk that line more so than a person who doesn't spend so much time with themselves. Because creativity is such an inner process, and it can bring up so much stuff. And if you were sane before you started being an artist or a writer or any of this, it's really hard to hold on to that. Before I became a writer, I never understood. I'm like, man, it's just so strange that there's so many writers that are alcoholics or drug addicts. I just didn't get that. I just thought, oh, that's a very strange coincidence. Then I began writing, and also writers that struggled with major depression, and there's all kinds of different mental disorders that tend to go along with writing. I didn't get it until I began writing. And when I really got into the middle of my first book, it was like, boy, I get it. I totally get why writers drink and do drugs and struggle with like just major depression. It's really hard to be inside of your own head, and because we all are our own worst critic too. So you're dealing with this critical voice all the time and it's crazy making, because I don't know if it's the same way when you paint, but when you write, it truly does feel like you're going mad, because you'll write, let's say you do 10 pages of writing, and let's say you're like, oh man, this is really great. I really feel like I had a productive day of writing today. And then the next day you go back and you read some of what you wrote, and you might hate it and just think this is just garbage. Like, did monkeys break in the middle of the night and just start typing? Like, who wrote this? This is awful. That's it. It's trippy when your perception of your writing can shift so radically from, kind of within a span of a few hours. And then, anyways, so yeah, the point being, I think any kind of creative endeavor it's a struggle, and it takes you to some very strange places. Yeah, Fallon says, I agree, Dana. I learned how to love myself and hate myself through painting. Yes. And I came across a quote somebody had said, I don't remember who said it, but it was so spot on. They said, and I'd be curious, maybe, I don't know if it's the same way with painting, but with writing, they had said, the hardest thing with writing is when you're done, what you've written is just a pale reflection of what you wanted to say. And I thought, yeah, that's the struggle, is your audience doesn't know what you wanted to say. They don't know anything other than the words that are on the page, but the writer does. And so, the parts of your book that you're frustrated with, or that you feel that you didn't express clearly enough, or, it just, it's hard. It's hard. And it's hundreds of hours of work. Rob says, Johannes Brahm threw masterpieces into the fireplace. Many were rescued from the ashes. Yeah, I get it. I can totally imagine. It's so hard when you're trying to express yourself. And even if stuff that's coming out is still good, to you, it's not what you were trying to get out. Exo says, art is self-abuse, but therapy too. Yes, it definitely can feel that way. I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting, and then we'll do the guided meditation and call it a night, is this book that I'm working on with Agata, the Healthy Love here. Well, she was here earlier. She's an artist. I absolutely love her work. And she began painting all of her, well, not all of it, but the paintings for this book all revolve around abuse, understanding abuse, what different concepts are, what they feel like, healing from abuse, what it is, what it feels like, all of it. It's such amazing, powerful stuff. And she had said that so many of the paintings, she didn't really understand what she was painting at the time. It wasn't until after the fact, and that she began to understand what her brain was trying to communicate. And then even more so, because her native language is Polish. And so I'm the one that's writing the book. And so we would go through her artwork and she would explain. I would just say, okay, explain this painting to me. And why did you choose these colors? Like, is this significant? Or you put the figure over to the left where you normally put it to the right, or what? So asking her all of these questions about why did you make these choices that you did? And then she began thinking about her work in a very different way, like yet again, a very different way, because she'd already, you think about it in different ways before that. And it was just, it was such a cool process to watch her work through this new level of understanding of, these are the colors, these are the images, this is what she was trying to convey. It's so interesting the way that the brain works and how we can express ourselves, and that there's so much there that it's trying to express. Pretty wild. So, okay. So with that said, let's get kind of settled in for our meditation of the night, and then we'll call it a night, and then I will see you guys next week. So Actually, real quick, let me just elaborate on that. EXO says, art therapy has been the best for me, especially with profound rage I feel about my abusive childhood. Yes. And one of the reasons that art can be so therapeutic for a person is when a person has gone through trauma, that there's parts of your brain, the Broca region of your brain tends to just shut down. And so it's amazing. There's just parts of your brain that go offline. And so it's very difficult for a person to articulate what they went through. So if you've ever experienced that, where you truly feel like you have lost your voice, and some people go mute, they just stop talking because they don't even know what to say. It's just this loop that plays in their head of they're just so lost in their head, in their thoughts. And uh, trauma of any kind can do that to a person. And so art is a really great way to bypass that. So even though you're not able to express, to articulate what's going on, it's still there. And art is a great way to get that stuff out. It just taps into totally different parts of your brain. So yeah, neat little tidbit there. Okay, so really, with that said, let's do our guided imagery meditation for tonight. So if you are laying down, take some time to get comfortable. If you are sitting down, take some time to get comfortable in whatever position feels the most comfortable for you. And let's do some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Taking time to really settle into this moment. Being fully present here. Realizing that in this moment that you are safe and that it's okay to unwind and relax. Allowing any stress or tension that might be present in your body to easily and effortlessly dissipate and move back into the atmosphere easily and effortlessly away from your body. Like it's steam rising and continuing to breathe. With each breath in, allowing that oxygen to fill up your lungs, down to the base of your lungs, down deep, deep into your stomach, allowing your chest and torso to rise with each breath. Visualizing all of this healing, restorative oxygen flowing easily and effortlessly throughout your body. And exhaling any stress or tension that might be present. Being fully in this moment. Turning your attention inward, listening to your heartbeat. Being fully present in your body. Realizing that you are safe and that there is a lot that is good and right in this moment and with you. Bringing your attention up to your forehead, relaxing your forehead and your eyes, allowing your eyebrows to relax, allowing any tension or stress to easily and effortlessly just slide away. Relaxing your cheeks and your jaw. Relaxing your tongue and let it fall from the roof of your mouth. Relaxing your cheeks and your jaw to the point where your jaw falls open. Relaxing your neck and your shoulders. Allowing your body to gently and easily and effortlessly sink into your chair or into your bed. Relaxing your shoulders, your upper arms, your forearms, your hands, and your fingers. Easily and effortlessly allowing them to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable for you. Feeling the weight of your arms as all of that tension and stress leaves your body. Bringing your attention back to listening to your heartbeat. And continuing to breathe. Relaxing your chest and your stomach. Allowing your chest, your shoulders to fall back and your chest to open up. Allowing any tension or knots in your stomach to easily and effortlessly unwind. Feeling the heaviness of your torso as all of that stress and tension easily and effortlessly dissipates. Relaxing your hips and your thighs and your calves, your feet and your toes, allowing your legs to fall into whatever position is the most comfortable. Now feeling the weight of your whole body as you release any remaining tension or stress that you might be holding on to. And continuing to breathe. Now visualize a light, a warm, healing, restorative, peaceful light flickering in the middle of your chest. Perhaps it looks like a candle flame. This is your inner light, your inner being, your inner self. It's always there. It's always a part of you. And it connects you to your instincts, your intuition, your deepest sense of yourself. Knowing what is nourishing for you and knowing what is not. This light connects you to everything that is good and right with yourself and with the world. And as you continue to breathe with each inhale, feeling that light growing bigger and stronger. To the size of a softball, a volleyball, a basketball, larger and larger. This light radiates a sense of warmth and healing, a sense of complete peace with yourself and with the world. Feeling that light as it expands throughout your chest, your legs, your arms, and your head. Feeling that wonderful, healing, comforting glow as it makes its way through every single cell in your body, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, swirling in and around each and every one of your cells, restoring your body, healing your body, connecting you to everything that is good and right in the world. Realizing that in this moment that you are safe, that you are at peace, turning inward and listening to your heart. Let's take some time to visualize sending out this white light, this inner light that's within you to different people, perhaps in the chat or perhaps in your daily life. Sending out that warmth, that goodness, or just connecting to the warmth and goodness of everything that is good and right with the world. Taking time to appreciate all of everything that's good and right. There is so much that is good and right with you and with the world and with your life. There really, really is. And it's okay to acknowledge it. It doesn't mean that your pain is any less than it is. It just means that there can be lots of things that are good and right going on, even when there is so much darkness and pain. And for now, we're just going to focus on everything that's good and right. And when you're ready, come on back to yourself. Take some time to give yourself a really big, energetic hug, acknowledging how strong you are, how much you've been through, and how amazing it is that you come here into this chat and that you're able to support other people that are going through so much pain. I think that takes such a tremendous amount of inner strength to be able to do that when we're in such a dark time. There's so much compassion and empathy and goodness that truly is alive and well in the world. There is so much that is right with you. There truly, truly is. I hope that you are able to take some time this week and to find and identify some things about yourself that are truly good about you. To find the good in you. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. So thank you guys so much for being here and for all of the support that you give each other and for the conversation and for all of it. It's just very enjoyable. Well, thank you, Missouri Cowboy, for the live stream donation. He says, remove the weeds and choose to bloom. Yes. Yes, I like that. Good deal. So you guys have a fantastic rest of your night and your week. And as always, lots of love to you. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care and sending lots of light and love your way. Good night.